All right. It's always funny. I'm always so garbage with words and everything, especially when it comes to talking directly to a camera. And I always hate doing it too. It's just the kind of person that I am. But today, though, I'm here to talk about something that's been on me for a while and slowly but surely been coming around with it. But today, I'm here to completely take that final step in my eyes to it. So today, here to announce to everybody completely that I'm coming out as a pansexual. Now, some of you might not know exactly what that is, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that you don't. Um, Funny story, I'll get to it in a minute, but when it comes to pansexuality, in a lot of ways, it's very similar to bisexual, and it's not like if you were to call me bi versus pan, that's necessarily wrong. It's just that pan is a bit more inclusive to specific things. So, depending on who I'm talking to, and I've had this incident before, depending on who I'm talking to, I might say that I'm bi versus me being pan. And so, going a little more into detail with it, uh, pansexual, as I said, is a bit more inclusive to it, to whereas my sexual preferences aren't limited toward gender identity, be you male or female at birth, you're transitioning from one to the other, vice versa. You don't identify as either one of them, being non binary, um, intersex, where you're both. Honestly, with me, it and other pansexuals such as myself, we don't give a shit what you got. Honestly, we fall for you, not what you do have or what you don't have. We're here because we think you're genuinely somebody that we're interested in, and that's it, honestly. Like I said, if you were to call me bi, I wouldn't really bat an eye at it because it's not necessarily a different thing. Um, yeah. Right now, kind of coming around to. I'm doing all this off the cuff, by the way, so I have absolutely no script in front of me. I'm just here. So I guess I can say that at least when I was coming up, because I didn't actually really hear about the term pansexual until probably a little over a year ago. And before that, yeah, I kind of identified, at least with myself, as bi. Honestly, I've known that I've at least had the attraction to multiple sexes since an incredibly young age, since I was about 7. I know for a lot of people, that's like, wow, that's pretty early. But as I've said with a lot of things in my life, I'm just ahead of the curve. But as I was growing up, I mean, I've had friends that were gay and everything. I've had lesbian friends. I've had people all over the place. And yeah, I've seen that they've gone through some difficult things in the past. And I mean, I went through some difficult things myself, but nothing, I guess, too extreme in that regard. And I was pretty, I guess, content just living as if I were, completely straight. Because the thing that I told myself, and it's not necessarily a good thing, but I guess I tried to justify it over the years, was that, I'm not completely lying about this. I mean, sure, I'm attracted to women and men and everybody else in between, but it's like, since, like, I wouldn't necessarily be lying if I was, only trying to go further along with women. But honestly, that's not a way you want to live. You don't want to constantly keep yourself in the shadows. You want to enjoy life with who you are and be around people that will accept you for who you are. Getting around to that, and a lot of people would think that a big reason why didn't I didn't come out with this was because I was afraid of how people might react toward me with it. But in all honesty, I really wouldn't have cared. I'm the kind of person people look at me weird and treat me weird all the time anyway. It's just been something I've had to live my life with. But that particular thing, as I said, is just I was kind of content with it. I kind of justified the sort of lie, as it were, of just being straight when I wasn't entirely. And coming back finally around to when I had discovered the term of pansexual, I mean, I'd like lightly heard it thrown around here and there with a few people, mainly just within like articles and things that I've read in the past. But I never really delved much further into it. But it wasn't until I was actually sitting at home and I was watching an episode of a Netflix show called Big Mouth. I absolutely adore that show. That show hits adolescence perfectly on the head, even if it is absolutely ridiculous. But it was one particular episode toward the end of the second season, or was it the third season? I forget. Toward the ends of one of the seasons, they had introduced a pansexual character, and they were discussing in it what it was, and it's basically everything that I already told you. And as they were talking about it, I was like, you know what? That more or less is actually how I am. And since then, I had been, at least with myself, like slightly tweaking up the definition of how I saw myself. Even though it's not, like I've said before, not too different. Just depends on who I'm talking to. Yeah, and I want to say that I had. Yeah, you know what? Now that I remember, it was toward the end of season 3 of Big Mouth. Because this was around, I want to say, October of last year, almost exactly a year ago now. Yeah, toward the end of October last year that I had seen this episode and I was watching it and I was coming up with all these. And ever since then, as I said before, I was content with living my sort of lie as it was. But after that, I didn't want to anymore. Honestly, I'd gotten this bug up my ass about it, and I needed to just start coming clean about it. So, over the rest of fall and winter of that year, 2019, I had sort of started devising a bit of a plan and a list of things that I needed to do. The plan being that I start slowly coming out to specific people and then eventually coming to where I am right now, is making it completely official, coming out to everyone, so that making it public knowledge. And the second thing was, who was I going to tell first? Like, how was I going to try and go about this? I was incredibly lost. I didn't know what sort of route to take. For the longest time, at least to my own knowledge, because people probably were hiding like I was, I had really only known maybe 2 or 3 members of the LGBT community in my life. One of them was an old friend of mine whom I have not actually had any sort of contact with in the last 13, 14 years. And a few members of my family down my mom's side, but again, I haven't seen them in even longer, probably roughly 20 years, let alone actually talking to them. Um, However, I had come up with my list. But first things first is I had to try and find some sort of help, some way for someone to try and give me some sort of guide as to how to go and how to approach it. So I started off with two people that I work with. Both of them are lesbians, and one of them is a little older than me. The other one's a little younger than me. I figured um, get some advice from both sides of that. I sat kind of in the middle of the two of them. So uh, I had been poring over this and trying to get myself to do it for almost 2 months. I want to say like right before Christmas of 2019. I was trying to see if I could uh, get together with them, have like a lunch thing or something, and try and take it from there. But I I'm terrible with words, and I'm even worse around certain people, especially when one of them is my manager. It makes it just a little bit more difficult. It wasn't until about mid February of this year of 2020 that I finally got up that bit of courage to very very nervously and kind of retaining myself, not like screaming it out in nervousness of the two of them hanging out with me for lunch and everything. I didn't tell them why. I just asked if they wanted to go to lunch with me, and they agreed. And this was say about a week later is when we decided to do it. All three of us had actually been working that day, so we all were able to have. Well, they were able to have their lunch break. I was getting off from work at the time, so we went. We went to a Peter Piper just because it was close by, and I know I could find a spot so we could talk a little bit easier. But oh my god, that day I was such a wreck. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. I mean, there'll be some people, such a small percentage of people that coming out is going to be such an easy ordeal, but for most people, it is one of the most harrowing things you will ever go through in your life. And I'm not normally an incredibly emotional person, but I was so nervous, I was distraught. I was this close to just breaking down in tears toward the end of it. But yeah, we were there, and I was trying to work up my courage to try and do this, and I'd given myself this task to try and put myself under a time limit to see if, just kind of force myself to do it, because otherwise I would try to duck it. I know myself too well. I would try to duck it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself this time period. However, I had a little bit less of a time period than I was initially thinking. I was thinking I would have maybe about an hour, 45 minutes at the least, but I really only had 30 minutes. And that really started to lay the pressure on me a lot more. So throughout the entire time we're there, I'm not saying a word. I'm just there. I don't think they really realized that anything was wrong with me because I normally don't talk around them all that much anyway. And the time was coming that they had to start heading back for work, and I still haven't said anything. And I was still just freaking the fuck out. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm just going to have to crawl back in my hole again and just forget about this and just go back to what I was doing." But I couldn't do it anymore. I needed to come forth with it. So as we were all walking back to our cars and everything, we were parked practically next to each other. I walked with them to one of the girls' cars, and excuse me, I very, very nervously, stuttery, I'm tripping all over myself. I finally came out to them about it and I said to them at least, because I wasn't sure exactly how to go with it, but I just told them like that I'm bisexual. I came out to them that way, and both of them, for pretty obvious reasons, given the fact that they're LGBT as well, they were understanding of it. They were happy that I came forth with it. Those like them, they were the first people I had ever come out to at all. I was such a wreck, and they both understood. They said of course, it's a big deal. Um, we talked just a very little bit because they had to go to work. But basically, one of the key things that I took away from this, and this is going to be something that sticks with me for the rest of my life. The older lady, her name's Stacy. She'd said something to me, like I said, that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. Is just because my love is different from most other people's doesn't mean that it's in any way less than others. I'm pretty sure I'm paraphrasing that quite a bit, but you'll get the gist of it. It's just surround yourself with people that you love, that care for you, and that are going to understand. And anybody that doesn't, get them out of your life. You don't need them. They don't need you, obviously. Just for the simple fact that something as small as this could change their entire outlook on you. Fuck them. And that's when I said I first came out to them. And oh my God, it was such a relief, a weight being lifted. I know that's a little cliched, but that's honestly the only way to describe it. I felt so good afterward. After they had left, I was sitting in my car for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, just sitting there, just flooded, just absolutely overwhelmed in a good way with just so many positive emotions. And as I said, this was back in February this year. And I had my list of people that I was going to be trying to talk to, slowly coming out to, etc. And then just my luck, because it always happens to happen that way. The global pandemic decided it wanted to hit. So I'm like, oh, well, this is nice. I decided to try and turn my life around and start doing this kind of stuff right before a lot of us were forced to be confined in our homes. That was incredibly hard, but over the time, I very slowly started coming out and going through my list and everything. But between the first two that I talked to and the next one on my list, that one I have to say was probably about a month, maybe a month and a half. So this was either late March or early April. And the first person on my list, and I knew that this was going to be the first person on my list, was my best friend and brother. He's practically my brother, is my friend Cody. He and I, we've been through so much shit, thick and thin. We've been friends since the 4th grade. He's just there for me, and I'm there for him. And I knew that he had to be the first one. And when I was going to come out to him and everything, I went over to his house. We were going to hang out and everything. We hadn't hung out in a while anyway. But we'd gotten together, hung out, and I'm not even joking. What I thought was maybe me going to be there for an hour, maybe, ended up being an almost 7 hour ordeal of me just struggling to eventually just spit it out. And I told him. But the thing is, it was different with him because he was the first person I came out to actually as pansexual. And obviously he didn't know what it was, but I told him, and of course he understood. And I said he took it exactly how I knew he would. He was absolutely cool with it. I said he's had gay friends, he's got gay family members. I'm not the first person to come out to him. He's had like 8 people come out to him, mostly gay, a couple of lesbian. I'm the first pan that's come out to him, so that was fun. But like I said, that one, and my last person I came out to before this were the absolute hardest ones for me. So after Cody, next what I started doing was some of my close friends and coworkers that I work with. We've all gotten pretty close over the years that we've been working there. So I've came out to them. I won't go into the details with it just because there's too many stories with it. But in the end, every single person that I've talked to has been absolutely ecstatic. Not I wouldn't say ecstatic, but really really happy that I've come forth to them, that I'm being myself, that I felt comfortable enough in telling them and trusting them with this. Nobody's given me any sort of bad reaction, which I know that's not going to be the case for most people, a lot of people. But I've been lucky so far that I've had nothing but positivity toward it. One of my friends, and she's one of my very good friends. She, like my last person I came out to, who I'll get to in a second, they're both like my chosen sisters. You know, you got the family you're born with, and then you got the family that you choose. Like I got a chosen brother and 2 chosen sisters. This one, her name is Lori, and I knew she would take this just fine because she is one of the greatest people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And I knew she was going to take this very well. And she did, but the thing is she really, really surprised me with it. She was absolutely ecstatic about it. Like, she was way happier than I thought most people should be in this, which was a little weird. And I told her that too, but that's also just the kind of person that she is. But her, her, fuck, what's the word? Just, just how she was with it was just, it was so nice. And I really enjoyed it. And then, of course, I kept telling a couple more people. And then I know that you're gonna hate me for this at least a little bit, but you'll understand why I mean this. It came around to I kind of ran into the point where I had to tell my mom. And originally, this is what I'm saying she was gonna hate is originally I was planning on her finding out whenever I did this and not telling her. I'm sorry, mom, but you know that that's what I probably would have done. But honestly, I walked into an opportunity that allowed me to actually come out to her that way. And so I did. And of course, first things first, like most mothers do, they ask the one question that you feel as if was really randomly placed was, oh, now I'm going to have to wait longer for. Oh, wait, no, sorry. I'm thinking of something totally different. She's like, well, how come you didn't tell me? Were you afraid that I wasn't going to understand? And I'm like, no, I knew for a fact that you would understand. I mean, come on, we have gay family members. I know you'd be understanding of that. You've had plenty of gay friends in your time. She was just like, well, why did it take you so long to tell me? Same reason as anybody else, honestly. Just didn't feel like I was ready to. But honestly, for most people, there's 2 stages to coming out. For me, there's 3. The 2 stages of it is, one, you're coming out to close friends, and stage 2, which is the hardest part for most people, And that's where they kind of have the finality of it, is coming out to your family. Some of my friends, like two of them specifically, they were the hardest people I had to come out to. And I'll get to the second one in a minute. The first one was Cody, the second one I'm coming up to. Coming out to my mom and my sister, these were separate occasions, but coming out to them was incredibly easy. The only reason why that was easy, at least for me, is that I've never really been too close with my family anyway. So that's why it was a bit easier for me. So it wasn't too weird with it. Another one that I knew would be easy, and I knew there'd be some jokes with it too, but also still kind of hard, was my uncle Andrew. He's not my actual uncle, but he's closer to me than my actual uncle is. Any of them, whatever. I don't know how many there are. But when I said I knew he'd understand it, again, he's had gay friends. He's going to have gay friends. He's one of the most understanding and just tolerable people ever. I mean, sure, he's like a lot of other people. He has a lot of things and people that he doesn't like. But the thing is only if you really, really start to affect and offend him will he ever do anything to you. But other than that, you live your life. And I told him about this, and I was nervous. I did this right before I had to go to work one day. And one thing I wasn't expecting was that his girlfriend was also there. So I kind of got a twofer on that one. I wasn't entirely planning on coming out to her at that point too, but I did anyway. Yeah, as I said, there were some jokes and stuff over the years that I had known him and everything. There were like little jokes here and there because he would, and I know he meant it as jokes because he does it to his gay friends too, his openly gay friends. That he's like, he would kind of jest a little bit about, me possibly being gay or something because I wasn't actively pursuing women when in my early, basically all throughout my high school years. And like I said, I knew he was joking about it. I always laughed. I mean, they were funny too, but deep down a little bit, I'm like, he is partly right. And I said that too. It's like, well, you're partly right because I am like half gay. I came out to him as pan, but the thing is, he's even though he is progressive, he is still slightly old school with some things. Is that he really only believes that there are two genders, male and female. That's just his thoughts, and I'm not gonna try and change him. That's how he is. He's still one of the greatest people I've known. But with him, I'm bi. With a lot of other people, I'm pan. But like I said, it doesn't really matter. Those terms are pretty interchangeable to me. And then finally, this one was exactly a week ago today, actually. Was the very last person that I had come out to, and the last person that I had on my list before coming forth and doing this was my best girlfriend, Amber. She and I, oh my God. Again, she is my other chosen sister. We have been friends since we were 5 years old. She was the very first friend I'd ever had in my life. And even though we hardly see each other anymore, she doesn't live here anymore. She's married out in Texas right now. But the thing is still, as I had to tell her, I really did. Just because I needed to. And I'd been trying to contact her for a while. We would message each other on Facebook, text each other a little bit. But this is the kind of thing I didn't want to do over anything like that. I felt like this needed to be a face-to-face thing, especially with her. I've only had one instance where I came out to somebody over like a text message. And at that point, I found that one kind of okay because she's just an interesting person that way. It worked that way. And also she lives in Alaska, so it doesn't help. But with Amber, so she lives in Dallas, I decided, fuck it. Decided to do a video call with her And let alone for the fact that we were on a video call for 6.5 hours. It was basically a year, an hour for every year we haven't seen each other. During that time, I had decided to come out to her, and I did with her very similar how I did with Lori, is that both of them are very aware that I'm not one to really show emotion, to be nervous about things. And I was really nervous at this point. I was giving her like a mini heart attack coming through with this. And I finally told her, and she said, like, that's all? That's what you were so nervous about? That's what you were giving me a damn heart attack over? And I said, yeah, it was. And I told her I was sorry for giving her that heart attack. Told me not to be sorry. Nothing to be sorry about. But another reason why it was so hard for me to tell her about this is because she grew up in an incredibly religious household. And as a lot of people know, there is that, even though I was 99% sure that she would take it exactly like she did, which was with open arms and absolutely loving it and very proud of me for coming forth with it. But there's just that 1% there, that little bit that lingers in the back of your mind. And I know it lingers in everybody's mind that are going through this same situation. Is what if that little bit of religious hypocrisy comes forth and they turn away from you? They don't want to do anything with you anymore. They look at you differently, etc. And she said that, even though she is religious and everything, that doesn't matter. She said to herself that she's tried to be a very open and respecting and accepting kind of person. And she's like, I've tried that my whole life. And I'm like, you still are. It's just that's just how it is. Like, even if you are, you never know, especially when people as close as we were. That's just how it was. And honestly, again, a little cliched, but such a tremendous weight has been lifted. Like, with the hardest people to come out to for most people, as I've said before, is going to be like your mom and your dad and like certain family members and stuff like that. For me, it wasn't that hard. Like, my mom was fine, my sister was fine. My dad doesn't know because I haven't seen him in years and I'm not talking to him. That's their own problems. Even if he did find out and he wasn't accepting, oh well, we don't talk anyway. The hardest ones for me, as I said, were my two absolute closest best friends, Cody and Amber, my brother and my sister. They were the hardest ones for me. For a lot of people, that's not necessarily going to be the case, but it was for me. Also, something I wasn't expecting during this journey was when I was coming out to some people, a few people had actually come out to me, and they hadn't really done that before. I'm not going to name names, but that was a little unexpected, but also really nice to hear because, again, a little bit further on, they have a little bit more of that understanding and acceptance in them. And yeah, honestly, what it all runs down to is I'm coming out today. I'm done with hiding in the shadows. And anybody else watching this, if you have any of these kind of feelings, come forth with them. Don't hide anymore. It sucks. It really, really does. And to everybody who's watching, just if you accept me for who I am, nothing changes. I hope nothing changes. Cool. Let's just keep going. I'm still the same person I was. This doesn't change a goddamn thing. To those of you who this does change in a negative way, bye. I don't need you in my life. You obviously didn't need me either. Something this small is going to affect the way you see me. I don't think there was anything else I really needed to say. But one thing I will do now is just went out and bought this yesterday, but still got myself little rainbow dog tag thing. I've been wearing it all day, but I've had it tucked under my shirt. From now on, this thing's going to be sitting out here. I'm going to be wearing it out there proudly because you know what? I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of what I am. Anybody else who doesn't respect that, I don't need you. You don't need me. Go live your life. I'll live mine. Thanks, everyone. And I hope to talk to you again soon.